Ireland's obviously been in the news quite a lot recently for their pushing back against asylum seekers and migration more generally to Ireland. And I think that there have been a lot of sympathies from abroad, and I'm one of the people that thinks that actually, they have a right to say, no, we don't want this in our country. And we're going to look at some of the reasons why and some of the pushback in recent times, because this month and the past week or so has been quite hot, if you pardon the pun, in the protests against lots of these migrant processing facilities. So let's remind ourselves quickly about why the Irish might be opposed to these sorts of people. So here's a case here. This was from 2022 and he was imprisoned in 23. Yusuf Palini murdered 2 Irishmen. He is Iraqi Kurdish. And this was just this week, or the prior week. And it says, this week the court saw 1 asylum seeker jailed for sexually assaulting a woman in Dublin, while another internationally protected applicant was charged with the rape of a woman in Limerick. And apparently the 26-year-old Algerian Adel Karai had arrived in Ireland only 5 days before he sexually assaulted the woman who was waiting for her boyfriend on O'Connell Street. And apparently he had 4 previous convictions in the UK. I don't know how they didn't screen that. And was only jailed for 2 years and 3 months for this, which is disgusting. I think that sex crimes like this, particularly from someone from outside of the country, that's what the death penalty is for.
Yeah.
I don't have any sympathy for these people. I don't think that person can be rehabilitated in society. And I don't think they should be. I think that they should be punished for what they have done. Then we have this one as well. Syrian refugee jailed for 3 years for the deplorable rape of defenseless woman. He's called Ahmed Al-Sabahi. And then you have this, of course. This was the anti-immigration riots in Ireland. This was back in November after 3 children were stabbed by a foreign national. This guy was called Riyad Bouchaka, and he was from Algeria. Apparently he'd been living in the country for 20 years and he was of no fixed address. I'm sure Ireland was better off for having this man who stabbed innocent children in their country. And
so he was neither a rocket engineer nor a surgeon.
No, he wasn't. He was a vagrant. And of course there are articles gaslighting people who are angry about this, how misinformation and far-right groups sparked a riot in Dublin after the stabbing of 3 children at a school. That last part sort of makes the former part a bit redundant, in my opinion.
What was the misinformation?
Who knows?
Because they've just said what the issue was.
I think the stabbing of 3 children is enough to be angry about, all on its own for this kind of reaction, right? It doesn't need to be any more explanation.
No.
And of course, the Irish Prime Minister has pleaded not to link crime with immigration. And these sorts of things, this failure of the political system to deal with what is obviously a problem that is caused by government policy. They made a choice to let these people in the country, and they failed the Irish people in letting them in.
Yeah.
In much the same way that is happening in lots of European and North American countries at the minute.
I often say to people that when you go to fly abroad and you spend 2 hours going through security, taking your shoes off and your belt off and stripping off, that's down to what we've allowed in. When you see these diversity barriers in towns and cities throughout the country, that's due to this. Why is Britain nearly on a war footing? And yet nobody points to the fact that we are less safe because of immigration, mass immigration.
But I mean, the crime figures vindicate this view unequivocally, don't they?
Yes.
In the per capita crime rates for certain groups of people are massively disproportionate to the native populations. And I think that's a perfectly just reason to not have these people in our country.
Yeah.
Not that we have to justify it, I think. Sorry, were you going to say something, Bo?
No, I can do though.
Go ahead.
Just the crime of having our countries flooded by these foreign criminals is completely unprecedented throughout all of human history, or certainly in the British Isles. Nothing like this has ever happened before. And I just hope that in years to come, the people that are responsible for it, people at the top of governments and civil servants and all sorts of people, the leaders of NGOs that have allowed it or physically made it happen, should be held to account at some point.
Because they are responsible for the crimes of the people who they're letting in, right?
Yeah.
by supporting these policies.
Like that guy, what was his name?
Varadkar, is it?
Yeah,
He's
Varadkar.
not the Prime Minister anymore, is he?
No, he's just gone.
Yeah,
No,
right.
He
he's
lost,
just
So,
he lost
like,
a
he's
major vote.
exactly the sort of person who should be held to account, should be put on trial for sort of crimes against the Irish people,
Yeah,
crimes against the Irish state,
Treason.
treason, right?
Treason, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the population of Ireland was round about 3.1 million. It's now touching 6. It's 5.5 million people, and they ain't people seeking to go back to their Irish roots. You know, and that's the problem. The issue is that you've now got emigration from Ireland from the Irish.
If fleeing their own ancestral homeland.
They're fleeing their own land because of the plantation that's now being in operation now by this guy, and of course you've got the president of Ireland as well, and the name escapes me because he's not even known in his own front room, let alone anywhere else.
Well, it is at replacement levels. That's one of the things the globalists always hate anyone saying or pointing out or even daring to suggest, that whatever it is, it's not a replacement. That's just a word a far-right fantasist might use.
Yep.
That's just misinformation. Well, no, not at all. Not at all. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
But to carry on with some of the gaslighting that's going on to the Irish population, because I do agree with you, Bo, that is what's going on, right? They're saying every migrant woman I know, including myself, has suffered from depression. This is in, I believe, the Times of Ireland. And then if you read the subheading, it reveals a little bit about why women in Ireland's direct provision system suffer sexual violence and many live in fear of their hostile environment. But hang on a minute, isn't that just revealing that the people they're housed with aren't safe for the Irish population?
Yeah.
The fact that all of these sex criminals, these monsters, are housed with them suggests that maybe they shouldn't be in Ireland in the first place.
Yeah.
They're in the wrong country.
Exactly. So I'm going to look at some recent cases of protests against migrant processing facilities, as well as just more general reactions against pushing these sorts of narratives, which, you know, journalists and politicians seem to be pushing, but it seems like there's a pretty organic pushback from the Irish population. And I am going to mispronounce some stuff. I'm English. Yes, I'm trying. At least I'm sympathizing with you. So if you're Irish, give me an easier time about it. But first going to Dundalk, I think it's pronounced. I don't know.
Dundalk.
That's better. Thank you. It's, in the north of Ireland, close to the Northern Irish border there. And there was an incident where a bunch of migrants, taxi drivers, coincidentally, always turns out to be taxi drivers, beat up a couple of kids. And there was a post to Facebook, I believe, which we should have somewhere. Where is it? Here we go. So this is a guy, I presume this is legitimate, but, take it with a grain of salt. I was out last night for drinks with my friends, and we went to a chip shop in Park Street where we saw a little 16-year-old boy that just came back from a concert being jumped by the gang that lives up over 5 taxis. Of course, we got involved to help make sure the wee boys were okay. There was about 15 of them, foreign nationals, that ended up attacking myself and others, leaving the little boys with busted faces, one child with a broken leg. Guards couldn't get an ambulance, so they had to phone for the wee boy's mother to come and get him and take him to the hospital. The gang ran back up to their flat and was hanging out the windows, laughing at us in front of the guards. Guards wouldn't do a thing about it. But of course, when I reacted back, I got arrested. They were throwing things out their windows and spitting down at us. The guards were there to protect them when it was the children that needed protecting. This is the country we are now living in. Shame and disgrace. And this led to a protest here. Hopefully this plays without the audio because it's quite loud. But there was a counter-protest outside the house of these people. And I'm just going to leave this to play in the background. And yes, a bunch of people turned out pretty organically to counter-protest the house of these people who did this. And it's people in the community, and the police were just there to keep these people safe. But there's no word of them being arrested or facing any crimes. And in fact, there was a counter-protest of a bunch of left-wingers. Everyone deserves a roof over their head, a bed to sleep in, and food in their belly, all in a safe place. These people that came from Dublin do not represent this town I love Dundalk so much, and I will always be there to shout against this racist hatred.
But they represent the country more than these people do.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter
They
if
do,
they don't
yeah.
come from they come from
Mhm.
Dublin. That's irrelevant. It's Ireland,
The issue is,
the Irish people.
and people forget it, and people forget it in this country, including the government. Your rights to as a refugee are pretty limited. To be kept safe, that's one.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be on a Royal Air Force station or an army base.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be in a town or a home. It could actually be in Arabia. It could be anywhere. As long as they're safe, there's food and sustenance. That's it. Why are we now giving them iPhones and money and free pizzas and taxis and stuff like that? It is over the top. It is driving a wedge between people that have not
Mm-hmm.
and these people that have everything,
Yeah.
including housing. In Wales, it is appalling. We're doing battles with stupid, low-caliber councillors in Llanelli that believe that the housing waiting list is not there for you or I, and neither is the private sector housing, but it is.
Yeah.
It's there. And the reason why you're on a waiting list is because there isn't private sector housing to put people for emergency accommodation. And it's going on in Ireland, it's going on across Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and it needs to stop.
We should be harder line even. We shouldn't be obliged to give them anything.
No.
People from the Middle East or Africa or anywhere. No, we don't. Britain and Ireland isn't an overflow car park for the detritus of the rest of the world. It's as simple as that. We should accept none of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
None.
Yeah.
So these people here, I think, have come over legally because they're working in taxis. But it goes to show that even legal migration is a massive problem. I know I'm focusing on illegal migration and what you were saying that
Just to say
definitely
that
applies
really
to the other
quickly,
ones.
on the taxis, so
Mhm.
we know we've uncovered it in Wales. You'll have one who'll got to have a taxi medallion
Mhm.
and all his friends will use it. So that taxi will be out all day, every day, because it'll be the unlicensed taxi drivers, the illegals that are using it. And that's, and I'd put my life in it. That's exactly what's happening there.
I would not be surprised because it's the same sort of crimes
Yeah.
across the board, isn't it?
The
Across all of
counter
Europe.
protesters, they're the most insane.
Mhm.
We use the analogy all the time, don't we? If you let a fox get in a chicken coop,
Yeah.
sort of don't blame the fox. The fox is going to do what foxes do.
Yeah.
You blame the farmer that failed to build the fence.
Mm.
These are these lefties.
Mm.
So let's sort of shame them here. Here is the great turnout, according to this person.
Yeah.
It's not as big as the crowd protesting the people who attacked those children.
Not very diverse. neither.
Turkey's voting for Christmas. What do they think they're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these are Sinn Féin IRA, probably, aren't they? You know, that they are the power that stand behind the government, which is Sinn Féin. And these signs, interestingly enough, at Penally, the same signs, these types of signs were the demonstrators, the illegals that were kept there. They broke out, went into the town, and they were holding the exact same signs up. I want a home.
Yeah.
And when Dan questioned them, they said, "Oh, we've been in prison. We don't want to stay in a prison.
Yeah, we've just come from prison.
We've just come from prison."
Hmm.
So these are the people that are being let in.
And these are the ones, at the same time, these people are saying, "Oh, these are dentists and doctors."
Astronauts.
Well, we didn't get that one. But that's what they were saying. So it's the same people. It's the same people. And
Yeah,
interestingly
same
enough,
organisations.
the Labour Party in Wales has sister affiliations with Sinn Féin IRA.
I'm not
It's
surprised.
funny, isn't it, how the world has moved on.
Yeah.
In the 60s, 70s or 80s, Sinn Féin or the IRA, they wouldn't be these
Exactly.
types of people, would they?
No.
How subverted Sinn Féin
This
has
is it,
been.
isn't it? The nationalists now, unless you're English nationalist, which is obviously far right, they're far left. You know, Welsh nationalists, far left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Welsh nationalists, they scorn me because I'm English, but they will do all
Welcome,
this
Africa.
all day long for people that have not got any interest other than to draw social security in this country.
Like the SNP being super lefty and wanting to rejoin the EU and stuff. They're destroying their own country just so they can sort of poke a stick in Westminster's eye or in English people's eye. They'll destroy their own nation and
Cutting their
society.
nose off to spite their face, aren't they?
Madness, absolute madness. Yeah.
So moving on to somewhere else, and it is we're now moving into lots of places in Dublin, starting with Corlock. I think I'm pronouncing that right. That's here in sort of north of Dublin, for those outside of Ireland. And there's a former factory that is being repurposed as an asylum seeker centre. And this is, ironically enough, the Crown Paint Factory, which formerly employed 150 people and began laying people off in 1997 and struggled on until about 2016, where it closed production and was outsourced to a different country with cheaper labour. There's a bit of irony here, isn't there? And now it's being turned into a migrant facility. So this sort of epitomises the failure of lots of Western governments, that our industries are being gutted from beneath us and we're having third world people flown in to terrorise our communities. Same for Ireland, same for England, same for Wales. And it is so frustrating. And it's good to see, at least in Ireland, people aren't taking it lying down in the same way that perhaps we are in England.
Well, everybody knows that paints are very highly flammable.
So it's worth mentioning as well that the site owners have received millions from the Department for Provisions of Accommodation. And I'm going to name them as well: Paul Collins and Tanya Hennigan. There we go. So those are the people you need to direct your anger towards. And the site has been set on fire many times. Here's a video showing the third time it was set on fire, because the counter-protests, the protesters against the site, I think have been setting fire to it quite a bit.
It wasn't climate change then. I thought it was climate change.
It might have been.
Right.
If you
we need an investigation in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you roll down the screen, the comment just to the top of that, it was plantation.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in Wales. It's happening in England, but in Wales, again, we are very similar size, 3.1 million in Wales. And suddenly there's been a birth boom, hasn't there?
I wonder where that's come from.
Yes.
So it's also been set fire to a fourth time. And I think the attempt is here to just make the building so uninhabitable that they give up.
Yeah.
Which, following the logic of what they're doing, could work.
See, I don't think that the fire brigade put the fires out the first time. I think you're being very harsh.
They didn't do it properly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same fire, just
migrant centres just spontaneously combust like churches do.
Yeah,
they
like
just
churches,
spontaneously combust. There's nothing anyone can do about it.
Like French,
it doesn't need any investigation.
French cathedrals, much the same, right?
Yeah, French cathedrals. They just burst into flames of their own accord. What can you do?
The police found some incendiary devices.
Planted.
There we go. That were produced by climate change. If I can get the picture to stay, there we go. It looks like
a bottle of water,
Molotov cocktails. Yeah,
Molotov cocktail.
But
or did the police actually put them in the first place?
Who knows?
Who knows?
But here is the kind of sentiment being expressed. This guy goes over at night time and holds up a sign. I'm just going to skip forward, and you can hear it being cheered on. Women and children are not safe. We are scared to walk our streets. And it's that simple.
Yeah.
It is.
That's all people are protesting about, is the safety of their women and children.
Correct.
Of the well-being of their community. That's all it's about. I mean,
the first duty of all governments is the defence of the nation and the protection of its people. And it doesn't matter whether it's Ireland or whether it's the United Kingdom. That is the first duty of any government, and they've lamentably failed.
Yeah.
Well, we can see them protecting them here by pushing them back and macing them in the face. Here you'll be able to see. There we go. Bit of mace spray. And then...
that's supposed to be a last resort.
It is, yeah. And it was completely unnecessary there because people were moving back organically. It wasn't like they were necessarily clashing with the police. It was... and talking of unnecessary here they are, moving back. There's hardly anyone here. There's sort of people loitering around having a look. And this guy's sort of not moving quickly enough.
What? And
they just shove him to the ground.
See, and the problem is if he got up and whacked him, which he in my self-defense, he's entitled to do, he'd be serving time.
Exactly. And it's sort of trying to provoke reactions out of people to justify the level of policing that's being used. And this is used quite often in protests that are not politically expedient, let's say.
But these again, you see, with the indigenous, they've got full riot squad out. With others, they're in shirt sleeve order. You know,
Leeds is a good example.
Yeah.
and the same in London when Just Stop Oil and others. You know, they're not in riot gear. It's only when you're waving a St George's flag or
It's because they know they can get away with it, isn't it? Because, you know, ethnic Europeans don't stand up for ourselves in the way that we used to, and it's sort of disgraceful. And I think that we do need to start standing up for ourselves, because the police reaction, you know, they're still the people calling the shots are still morally culpable for it, but there's still more that could be done to stand up for ourselves, I think.
Well, I think that clip, one of them was saying that the French police put down their batons and shields and stood with the people, and the guy was actually asking them to do the same, and they rewarded him with tear gas in his eyes.
Well, that's eventually what needs to happen in a lot of revolutions. Two that spring to mind is the October Revolution in Russia in 1917. Is eventually the state, the Tsar, calls out the Cossacks to whip the people into line, physically whip them into line or charge them. And the Cossacks refused to do it and joined the protesters.
Yeah.
Another example was Ceausescu. In the end, the army were just called out to put the people down. They were like, no, how about we kill you instead? So eventually you will need the police and or the military people to side with the right side of history.
I have heard the job from plenty of people in the police that say they're really not happy with the way things are going.
Yeah. And
it is there.
It is there, but the problem is, and I've been on the side of the local Bobby, the ones who are there, you know, thinking they're following orders. I know that's not an excuse, but the ones at the top are the ones that are giving these orders. The ones at the bottom are the ones who are just following them. But what I've seen, Ireland, Leeds, Wales, all the time in Wales, is the police, they seem to enjoy it. You know, they've been to conditions. So I find it really hard now to support the police in any way.
Yep.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, you carrying out them orders, you're as bad as the ones at the top. So we speak to people. We've got serving police in South Wales Police and ex-inspectors who speak to us. They can't wait to get out there. We're counting on the days so they can collect their pension and go. Because the new recruits that they're getting in are university graduates. They've gone through their full indoctrination process through university, and they believe what they're doing is the right thing to do when they're turning on their people. So I don't know. I don't have much faith in the police anymore, unfortunately.
No, because they have the morals, and then they open their paycheck.
Wow. They've got mortgages, they've got
and
kids.
That's the end of the morals, because down there you've got the overtime. And actually, as a young man, it was the miners' strike, and the police came to was it Scampton? I was at RAF Scampton, and we did riot training with them. We were the enemy. We were the miners.
Blimey.
And they loved it.
Yeah, I think there is a certain element of, particularly when they're screening for political views these days, with the, as you say, the university student admissions, they're screening for people with a specific political ideology that they're trying to basically get the police to police one side, not the other. Is ultimately what's going on here. So to move on, another place, Ballyogan in May. Also, here it is. It's just a small area, sort of quite south of Dublin here. There was more sort of unrest, if you will. There were 13 people arrested and a member of the guards injured after protests against another asylum seeker site. Again, this was set fire. There's a video here. And this was actually no, it wasn't the migrant facility that was set fire. It was the camp that the locals set up outside the facility to protest, because they've been there for quite some time. And presumably someone set fire to the protest against the facility.
Yeah.
I just remembered what was going on.
Just saying fake UGs. So by the,
Anti-asylum seeker campsites just spontaneously combust.
Apparently
just
so,
throw it on the list of things that spontaneously combust.
Yeah, and of course, lots of people are being prosecuted for their involvement with this. And then moving to somewhere else as well, Tala, I think it's pronounced. This is again near Dublin. 2 men were arrested for a break-in that was petrol bombed. This was another proposed asylum seeker site. And, you know, in that same area, man jailed for rape and sexual assault of 2 young girls. This is a really horrible story. a guy named Hamed Aziz targeted a girl between 6 and 8 and a girl between 8 and 10.
Unbelievable. See, you
And the government not doing anything about it. He'll remain in Ireland.
So he should be sent back home in an urn.
Agreed, yes.
I'm glad you said it in an yeah.
Yeah. And another one outside of Dublin here, Dundrum, not to be confused with Doldrum, in Tipperary, of course, historically rebel country. There was this case where there was this nice hotel, which was previously used for Ukrainian refugees, which the town didn't necessarily have a problem with because, they're European.
Yeah.
They can exist in our civilization without problem. But now the demographic has changed, and now they're pushing back against it because supposedly there are plans to house up to 280 of these IPAs, not to be confused with the pale ales, these presumably Middle Eastern as Africans that are causing all the problems in the first place. And yes, there has actually, according to this article, been 50 days of protest outside of this hotel.
Yeah.
So people are really dedicated. And this is a small town of 165, where there are going to be 280 potential foreign nationals, undocumented. Who knows who they are?
Yeah.
But that's the story in Wales. They say Ukrainians are coming in, families, and everyone goes, oh, it's all right. And then it changes.
Yeah, they lie.
They
It
lie.
turns out they were lying. Yeah.
But
But look at that place. Look at that.
It's lovely.
You'd get married in a place like that. Look at the gardens, the grounds,
Yeah, it's lovely. And 280 odd in a community of 165. Okay, that destroys that community.
That's not even replacement.
Absolutely.
That's,
It's far beyond
takeover.
replacement.
Yeah. Invasion.
That's such a crime.
Yeah.
That's such a disgusting, sickening thing to do to your own people.
Yeah.
So there have been some very obvious reactions here. Sinn Féin has uncomfortably softened their position, but not really. Party seeks to end two-tiered system favouring Ukrainians and calls for audit of services before asylum seekers are moved into any area. So they want to find out, some details about the area before moving them in. But the final decision still rests with them. They're still responsible for it. And they're just trying to save face. They're not actually doing anything meaningful to stop it. They don't actually care.
Well, no, what they're doing there is they're not looking out for the people. They're looking out for the facilities for the illegals. They, there's 100 odd people. I can't imagine there being much services around. So it wouldn't be fair for these poor people to be dumped in that luxurious mansion.
Yeah. And this kind of wording is exactly the same what Angela Rayner's come out with. That every local authority is going to have migrants whether you like it or not. Yeah. That's her quote.
I don't like it, and we should make it stop, is what I think.
Well, I think it should be 0.10 of the population.
I think there should be none at all. It's not a responsibility, but 0.10 is certainly
specific.
Well, all Gurkhas, you see.
Oh, I can live with that, yeah. Fair enough.
But what a perverted thing to do. Like Sinn Féin, how subverted or inverted could it have been? If there's members of the British Army on the streets, well, we'll shoot them. We'll blow up checkpoints. We'll blow up pubs. But forget all that. Now we'll flood our own country with foreign people that despise our values.
Yeah, we'll blow up musicians.
Okay.
We'll blow up horses. We'll blow up pubs. We'll blow up anything. But suddenly, it's all right now.
It's a complete flip.
It is, yeah. So this is from the 15th of July, condemning reprehensible violence. They're more concerned about the reaction than they are the actual problems causing the protests in the first place. This is the narrative that politicians are taking, and they're only going to force people to take more desperate action. And I never thought I'd say this, but the Telegraph summed it up quite nicely. The Irish elite would rather destroy their country than reduce immigration. And, hear to the Telegraph for publishing that.
But the Irish voted for it. You get what you vote for, lol.
No.
They voted for it, lol.
No, they don't deserve this.
Yeah, no, of course they didn't. They didn't vote for it,
No, we were never asked, were we?
They, like us, were never asked,
So, yes, obviously...
maybe they can vote harder next time, Lamau.
So, obviously, it doesn't mean much coming from an Englishman, but, I have my sympathies for the Irish people here. I think that they're suffering the same kinds of injustices that lots of other countries are suffering, and I hope they sort it out.
And this is actually why, as the nations, whether it's Ireland, as in Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales, why, we take each other, we rib each other, but this kind of thing we're united on. And we do not want our own characteristics in our own countries decimated, which is what this is doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Become a hated minority in your own ancestral homeland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mad.
Hi folks, thanks for watching, and if you'd like to support us, you can do so for £5 a month over on lotuseast.com, because of course we're demonetized here. And while you're doing so, you can watch some of our amazing premium shows, such as Calvin Robinson's Common Sense Crusade, in which he uses the word Mohammedan more than anyone else that I know. And go and follow us over on Twitter/X at lotuseaters_com.